Hi all. How do you feel about conflict? If there's a conflict in your group, what do you do? Although people might have different answers to these questions, we all tend to have pretty strong reactions to conflict. Some people try to avoid it at all costs. Some make choices about when and how they want to engage, kind of in a strategic way. Others kind of enjoy conflict and get energized by debating ideas or challenging others. So in this module, we're discussing conflict and power in groups. And in this brief video, I'll give an overview and highlight a few of the key concepts. So here's a few things you need to know. The chapter we read from the textbook gives a definition of conflict and describes some advantages and disadvantages to conflicts in groups. It also highlights several different types of conflicts that happen in groups, like relational conflict, which is more sort of interpersonal, task conflict, which is disagreement about how to accomplish a task or what the task should be, and process conflict, which is more conflict about how the group should go about doing its work, or some, like, are we spending not enough time or too much time, sort of procedural conflict. This distinction is useful because when people in a group are having a conflict, sometimes it helps to get clarity around what really is at the heart of the matter. Is it really kind of grounded in a relational conflict, or can we clear this up through understanding better processes and sort of process choices? It can make it a lot easier to figure out how to move forward and manage the conflict successfully. So if you can learn to recognize these different types of conflict that happen in your own groups, then you're more likely to be able to step up and manage them well. So one important idea from this chapter is that there are many different conflict management strategies. Research has identified 5 approaches. Some other research kind of looks at 3 general categories, or even 5 or 6, but most of it focuses on these 5 different approaches, which vary in how much emphasis they place on assertiveness, that is, meeting your own needs in the conflict, and cooperativeness, or attempting to satisfy the other person's concerns or the other person's needs. So for example, competitive strategies are high on assertiveness and low on cooperativeness. They emphasize winning the argument and not as concerned about how the other person is feeling and whether they have their needs addressed. It's more about like me being assertive and making sure that my needs are addressed. In contrast, like accommodating strategies are just the opposite. Someone who's really accommodating lets other people win and finds that that's more important than having their own concerns addressed. So other strategies involve avoiding conflict, compromising, and working collaboratively. You can probably think of people you know who use those different strategies, and you might be able to identify which one fits your best typical approach. I think it's important to know that these are not static. Right? That we might feel that some of them are more kind of comfortable for us than others, but we can learn to change our conflict management strategies based on what we learn. And so I know I personally used to be much more kind of accommodating and avoiding, and not at all competing. But I've learned to be more collaborative and sometimes compete when I feel like I really need to do that, because that's an important thing for me to step up and make sure that my voice is being heard and I'm not getting ignored, right? So as a young person, I was very avoidant, but I've learned to be more collaborative and competitive when necessary. Collaborative strategies in some ways are the best because they work to integrate the needs of all people involved in the conflict. And there's a whole body of work on conflict management in groups that talks about how to build this sort of integrative approach. And some of that is highlighted in some of our additional readings this week. But these are win-win solutions, and it sounds great and can be very amazing, and it is great, and it is amazing when it works. But collaborative strategies are complicated, and they take buy-in from all concerned. So in a group setting, facilitating collaborative conflict management is a very complicated and challenging task. If it's done well, it can have remarkable impact on the groups. But sometimes it is so challenging that groups need to bring an outside mediator in to help bridge the differences between group members and design group agreements and processes that can help facilitate collaborative conflict management. So conflict management strategies, an important idea, and I encourage you to think about how well they fit your own approaches and what you can learn and take to your own groups from that. Another idea that's highlighted in the chapter and then comes up again in our other readings is that power is important in understanding conflict. So people draw power from different sources or sort of bases of power, and understanding where power comes from can help you navigate through tricky conflict situations. Now, of course, power is communicated in a variety of different ways, sometimes very overtly, right? By somebody saying, look, I'm the boss, you have to do what I say. But sometimes it's very subtle through nonverbal communication, sort of language choice, or interaction patterns that privilege some people more than others, right? Power is present in all group interactions, and we've talked about it a little bit in relation to diversity and decision making, but power is especially important to understand when we look at conflict. So a team leader, for example, has authority based on their position. As a group member, I might be reluctant to engage in conflict with the team leader if I felt this person might use their power in ways that could hurt me professionally or kind of emotionally, or might have tangible implications for my sort of work and participation in the group later on, right? So that sort of overt power, that legitimate authority, can be very threatening. But other sources of power come from relationships, and you can think about how group members can support each other and to lend their power to each other during conflicts, right? Which can be a way to engage in dissent or resistance, but it can also be a way to form cliques and sort of take sides, right? And people can even use this sort of relational power to kind of gang up on someone else who's on the opposite side of the conflict. And of course, your ability to manage conflict in your group depends a lot on your own sources of power, such as whether people see you as trustworthy and fair and working in the best interests of groups, which is sort of a relational issue, or if you have knowledge and information and experience that lends you a set of a base of power that is useful for the group as a whole. So these ideas, conflict management strategies, and power, and the types of conflict, apply to conflict in lots of different situations. You can use them to analyze interpersonal conflicts, arguments between friends or family members, disagreements on social media, or even conflicts on a large scale within an organization. So what makes group conflict special? I think the biggest thing is that the way conflict kind of ripples through the group as a whole matters. That really matters in groups. Even if a disagreement starts with just two people, it ends up impacting the group as a whole. Group members might take sides, might persuade the other people to stop engaging in conflict, or might continue to talk about the conflict after the group interaction is done. So conflict in group settings is even more complex than interpersonal conflict because of group members' interdependence on shared tasks. Conflict is also part of group development, and there are stages of group work together that sometimes involve conflict as a necessary part of getting to know each other and getting to do our work together. So that kind of approach to conflict is also something that is specific to groups. So the research studies included in this module focus on different aspects of group conflict and especially look at how conflict is communicated within and between groups. I hope you find these readings useful, and I look forward to reading your reflections and discussions this week. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.